The protocol here is, if you are so moved, get up at any time and help yourself to coffee. For those of you who are new to the building, if you go out those doors and up the ramp are the lavatories. We are generously renting from the Unitarian Universalist Church. We are separate and apart because we believe in the separation of church and politics. So, as such, if you are moved to help us with the rent, there are vessels on this table and out front. Throw us a couple bucks and the church will appreciate it. We're going to start in just a couple minutes, so do your stuff and we'll be right with you. Thank you so much for coming out on one of the few days where it did not rain. Something to look forward to. So a lot has happened in the last month. I know I say this every month, but it really gets more and more bizarre every month. So, if you're not complaining about your health care premiums going up 220% higher than a year ago, if you're not complaining about the fact that the Trump family made $2.3 billion with a B dollars on crypto, that doesn't bug you. How about the tariffs costing the average family about $2,500 a year? Good Lord. But still we resist. So, things that are happening that don't make us happy, and then a few things that give us hope. Measles, rubella cases have risen to the highest level in 30 years. Children's hospitals have reported incidents everywhere, so this anti-vaccine thing is getting really dangerous. And I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the elephant in the room. Yes, the beautiful green algae $14.7 million spent, and it is a complete epic fail. But the good news is that people who are visiting DC are taking little pieces of it as souvenirs. So it's not easy being green. For those of you who are familiar with the Unitarian faith, and I don't proselytize my religion, but the U.S. military has erased UU faith and 180 other faiths from their services to our military. And for those of us who are Unitarians or humanists or pagans or a whole laundry list of others, we're pissed. Okay, moving on. How about the good news? The Obama Presidential Center. And appropriately, it opened on Juneteenth. Juneteenth being the emancipation of enslaved people. The Emancipation Proclamation, for those of you who remember, was in 1862, but we didn't have the internet then, so it wasn't until 1865 before the word got out. But they, as much as they have been unenslaved, there's still a long way to go in the fight for equality. Some positive, maybe news. The New York State proposal for moratorium on data centers. It's on Kathy Hochul's desk, is it? And so if you are so inclined to give Kathy a ring-a-ling, that would be so bad. And I'm proud to say that the Rise Up Sing Out Party, which was the alternative to the unseemly wrestling match on the front lawn of the White House. That was held here. We had 101 people in this room. So, and I saw people I've never seen before, so I hope they come back, and I see a few of you did. Okay, today we have a guest speaker, so we're going to really move through it quickly. For those of you who don't know how we do the protocol here, our guest speakers sign up ahead of time. They have 5 minutes. Those of you who know me know that my attention span is 4 3/4. So you have to be brief. You have to tell us what it is that your issue is and what you would like us to do about it, because it's not a gripe session. Okay? So everybody that comes up here is not only telling you about an action that they would like you to take, they're telling you what the issue is. All right, and to kick it off, Jill Fondler is going to come up and talk about postcards to get out the vote. And she's speedy.
Very quickly, I have postcards that need to be written and mailed out. If you need stamps, I have stamps for you. They are for Texas and New Jersey. They are specifically Get Out the Vote and in support of James Tallarico. I will be wandering around after everything is done with the postcards. I have a little tag, postcards. These postcards are through Indivisible and Organized for Action Western New York. Thank you.
All right, Ted, you're next. Ted is going to talk to us about data centers. And then Lorraine. Was there someone? Okay.
Hey everybody. So here's my thing, data center in Tonawanda. There's plans to build one in the Riverview area, and so we put together a website. It's the initials of No Data Center in Tonawanda, so ndcit.org. It has a bunch of information on what you can do next. Like Diane said, definitely write to Kathy Hochul, but another thing that you can do is attend town board meetings. Yeah. There's one in Tonawanda tomorrow night at 7 p.m. If you can join, that'd be great. But not only that one, but also for North Tonawanda, for Kenmore, and even for your towns, to get them to pass moratoriums. Yeah. The one that is right now, it is proposed, it's a great thing, but Hochul hasn't signed it yet. And also this specific project is on pause or on hold, but it's just more so for paperwork. They're waiting for that to come through. So again, I have some extra signs here, and I've got actually a lawn sign from Clean Air Coalition. Whoever wants that, please take it, put it in your yard. So the URL again, NDCIT, No Data Center in Tonawanda.org. The other thing I also want to tell people is I got an email from George Soros this morning. That did say, and you read it, he said that the Antifa checks are being delayed again, so I heard that. But I guess there's something about algae preparation and shipment, I don't know. So be patient with your Antifa checks. It'll come, it will. All right, thanks.
My swimming pool looked better than that. Lorraine, you're up. Lorraine Marcus is representing the Justice Advocacy Team.
And a few others. First of all, I'll get out of the way. The Rainbow Cafe. We're having a picnic in July, and let your friends and family know. Bring a dish to share. Next, the Leadership Development and Nominating Committee of this church, along with Justice Advocacy, is sponsoring a workshop on July 12th, it is a Sunday, with Braver Angels, who will be talking about depolarization. And it's open to anybody to learn about how to polarize conversations with the other side. Our service is actually going to be about the history of Braver Angels, and there are many attempts to bridge the gap with conflicting views. So you're welcome to attend that as well. But more importantly, the workshop is open to everyone. It'll be Sunday at noon and be held in our chapel in the other room over there, where we've had some of our meetings. Other than that, Justice Advocacy is on hiatus right now. We are having a retreat down in Heron, at the Heron, at
Great Blue Heron Music Festival.
Thank you. There's the advertisement. So, welcome to join. There is going to be at least one tent with 2 people there. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up is Sarah Metcalf. She's with Good Neighbors. I did want to mention that for most of our speakers here, there is literature out on the table. And if you are a speaker in the future, it's great if you do that, because that way we don't have to take notes and it doesn't feel like school. Okay.
Sorry, this is,
Fighting on the front lawn.
we need Braver Angels. I'm Sarah Metcalf, and this is Kathleen King, and we're with Good Neighbors Getting It Done in Western New York. And we have 4 areas of main focus, and those are migrant support, mutual aid, rural engagement, and voter mobilization. So I'm going to talk more about voter mobilization and migrant support, but Kathleen wants to say 30 seconds.
So part of the voter mobilization is we do support one of our own Good Neighbor members, who's Aaron Geese, for the New York 23rd Congressional District over get the seat of Midline Worthy, who's a terrible trumper. And part of that is that we are trying to do, we're going to do a quilt. We're trying to do an art auction project. As part of that project is a quilt. So if we have any people who like quilting and or fabric, you know, textile sewing that can do the top for the quilt, we're going to get it quilted. Please contact me, Good Neighbors, WNY@gmail.com.
Thank you. Yes, so that's part of the voter mobilization. I did want to mention, we did, so Wendy, who is not speaking but is here, has been leading our migrant support effort. And on June 5th, we had our first protest to de-ice Citizens Bank. So this is because Citizens Bank has been financing the Geo Group and or Civic, and there's the interest in leveraging our power, not just protesting them, but if you happen, as myself, to be a Citizens Bank account holder, we have literature outside on how you can get involved, whether or not you are a Citizens Bank account holder. And the key, if you are, is not to just immediately jump ship, but they are asking if you would sign a pledge, if you're not in a huge hurry to do it, and a pledge to withdraw some of your money or all of your money, and you can be specific, you don't have to be, but they're encouraging that so that it can be coordinated as part of a campaign. If you already did it and you knew about this and you wanted to get your money out, they also have a letter in which you can kind of post hoc explain why you did that. And so we're trying to leverage that. And thanks very much to Wendy and Eileen, who's not here, for getting that organized. So voter mobilization, I hope everybody knows we're still in primary season. Early voting is still today and tomorrow. And primary election day is Tuesday. And if in the Democratic primary, everybody gets to have a say on the comptroller, in case you didn't know that, wherever you are in New York State. So that's there. And then in places like the the district, is it 61, right? The one that, the one that was previously Sean Ryan's. This election between the two Democratic candidates is likely to be the election, so it would be important to weigh in if you are registered and to do that. And then obviously there's some interesting elections in the 23rd and the 24th districts. It's really great to see healthy primaries in the Democratic districts. What we are, our next meeting of Good Neighbors, if you've come to our meetings before, it's usually the first Saturday of the month. We're doing that differently for June and July, given other activities and Independence Day coming up. So our next meeting will actually be next Saturday, the 27th of June, and we meet at the main Amherst Library, formerly Audubon, now called the Shirley Chisholm branch, and we'll be meeting in the morning too, so right when they open at 10 o'clock, and that meeting will all be, well, we'll have our usual updates, but we'll focus really on voter mobilization strategies, including ideas for voter registration activities, and we're interested, Eileen, one of our leaders, has connections at Art Park. If anybody's interested in doing voter registration at Art Park, come talk to me, please, after the show. And we'll have some other voter mobilization ideas that we'll flesh out as well. Did I get it? Okay.
There are application forms out there on the desk for voter registration. If you know a person, particularly young people, who need to register to vote, stick this right under their nose. Okay, let's see. Valerie, is Howard joining you, or are you doing it solo?
Howard can join me if he likes.
Okay. We like
Howard joins me anytime he wants.
Okay. If you're hearing a lot about data centers, it's because they're everywhere.
Right.
And they're coming soon to a neighborhood near you. This is not a good thing. So, throughout New York State, we have a lot of resistance to them. And Valerie is among the many.
This is the same sign, yard sign. So you'll see it's Tonawanda.
We have to speak.
We have
Same sign, you'll see on the bottom it's for Tonawanda. However, take note on the bottom right, you can scan that. I have 20 signs. So the data center signs can be used across wherever you are. There are so many data centers going up, and in Western New York, or Erie and Niagara County, the Clean Air Coalition is the organization to work with. In terms of form letters, sample letters, sample zoning laws, regulations, changes, modifications, whatever you need, you'll find a resource on their website. This is a lot about the solar and battery, but that's a piece for a number of them. Howard's going to say a little, and I'll say a little more.
Any people here from Niagara Falls? Niagara Falls, going once, going twice. Oh, all right. The 30th of this month, there's going to be a meeting in Niagara Falls. She has the information on it, don't you? Yeah. I think it's 5:30 at night till 7.
Hold the microphone closer, please.
Sorry about that. It's going to be to discuss the data centers going up and what to do about them, and why they're there and whatnot. So it's a good learning situation on the data centers. So if anybody's in Niagara Falls wants to attend 5:30 on the 30th, make sure to give the address.
So for Niagara Falls, Packard Court Community Center. So that's right on Pine Avenue, right next to the,
So, yes, I think that you're quite close to where you're saying.
yes. So it's a housing development, so you just kind of drive through there and there's a community center in there. That's where they're going to be holding this. Everyone is welcome. It's not just Niagara County. So anyone that's interested in learning about data centers, there'll be a basic Data Center 101 presentation. So anybody can go, and everybody is welcome. Sign up. Again, use the cacwny.org. It's on the signs. We'll be giving signs out. I do need you to sign for them though with the name, zip code, and email. I have 20 signs for those who would like those. And you can easily reach out to CACWNY. So the data centers that are currently getting a lot of work in terms of pushback, organized pushback, is the one that's already been mentioned in Tonawanda. And then Niagara Falls just announced, of course, their data center. And it's going to be a rather large one. They went through one phase of zoning. They have a whole other phase to go through. So if you can, find out what you can about your zoning people, the zoning regulations, learn them, get involved. This is going to be a long battle, so get on there. Just come.
You're way over the budget.
Am I?
Yeah, you're way over.
Okay, the action steps, you wanted those.
No,
Call
we got
Hogan.
those.
Call
We got
Hogan.
those. We're done.
Look around you, look around for any changes in your.
Thank you. I am pretty rigid about the time because we have a guest speaker and we want to be cognizant of that. Galen is here to give us an update on the statewide coalition.
So good morning and greetings from Rochester, New York, your neighbor to the east. So this is my fourth time attending this meeting, and so I'm getting to know everybody here a little bit better each time. A couple things going on that are multi-regional that I just wanted to update on and tell you what the ask is. The first one is that probably most of the people in here heard me talk about we're trying to plan, this regards to the midterms. We're trying to plan, we're planning, and it's in progress, a statewide or Erie Canal-wide throughway bannering project protest to communicate messaging to flip the midterms. We started off with Buffalo through Syracuse. In the last few weeks, as it's evolved, UUCA heard about it. UUCA is now on board. And as of last week, Albany heard about it, so they're now on board. So now we're talking about a same-day, weekend protest in the summertime over the thruway, bannering the whole length with messaging to flip the midterms. In addition, we got contacted by Indivisible Oswego, who heard about it, and they want to do 81 going north out of Syracuse. And then also Indivisible Ithaca, which now wants to do it. We're all saying the more the merrier. The good news, and the thing you guys should be proud about, is that Kathleen King and Mimi Pisiulu are the anchors on the Buffalo West Side. We're going to need funding to do it. That's not the ask. We put in a GROW grant to Indivisible a week ago, and we're going to find out in the next couple of weeks whether we get it. If we get it, the actions are going to go in place targeting August as the first of 4 events. If any of the groups in here can possibly contribute people to help with bannering a bridge when the time comes, and we'll give further information out there. That would be ask number one for that particular project. But I want you to make you aware that there's a lot of people across the state doing what you guys are doing, and they're all on board about an exciting project. And I think we talked about doing it as far west as Silver Creek, so, yeah, and so we'll talk more about it. The second thing is that, and this may have been talked about at your watch party last week, Diane, Julie Utz knows about it. There's a second project evolving called the Conversations Along the Canal, and that's also midterm oriented. Timothy Curiano, who attends these meetings often, or he was at the last one, and Brian Brown Cashdell from Buffalo United, working with Rochester, is putting on an event, or they're staging an event on August 8th on the waterways, because there's a big history of waterways affecting the history of New York and political evolution of New York. Asking people to stage an event. It could be signing up for voter registration, passing out information about where to vote, if you don't know how to vote, if you need transportation, that type of thing. We're letting each group do what they want to do on their own. There will be more information coming out about that if you're not aware of it already. I'm not sure what's been shared, but if any of the groups in here can participate in that, the information should be coming out in the next week, and we want to get as many groups as possible involved in it, because it's yet another thing we can do to try to flip the midterms. And that's my two asks. Thank you.
We have packed a lot into 5 minutes. Okay, we have one more speaker, and then our guest speaker will join us. Harper Bishop? Okay. And Harper is going to speak to us about evicting ICE.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. It's so heartening to see so many of you. My name is Harper Bishop. I am the volunteer campaign coordinator for Evict ICE. Essentially, we're trying to operationalize the call for ICE out now. If you aren't familiar with 250 Delaware, there has been a lease in place for a decade, and that lease comes up March 31st, 2027. The building's owned by Uland Development and Montante family, with the anchor tenant being Delaware North. They have the power to say that they no longer want ICE in that building, and so we are taking action for that end. That headquarters, it circulates the surveillance, the detentions, the deportations, people who are being kidnapped on the west side, east side of Buffalo, anywhere outside of New York City, that's all coordinated in downtown Buffalo. Tomorrow, the Buffalo News will publish another voice that I co-wrote with Sean Marseille, who's a member of the coalition. It'll detail all these actions and all the nitty-gritty of what we have to do in order to get ICE out, but a couple actions that you can take on a weekly basis. Tuesday, 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. We're right in front of that building. We're making noise, we're letting our presence be known, and about 80% of Buffalonians who go by us honk in support. It is very heartening to go and to understand that people think that ICE has gone too far and that they need to be stopped, quite frankly. Number 2, the NHL draft. It's occurring this week in downtown Buffalo. It hasn't been there in as long as I can remember, and I'm 41 years old. We are going down to the arena, and we are having a public rally to talk about how Jeremy Jacobs and the Jacobs family, they own the Boston Bruins, and that the NHL is very much connected to 250 Delaware. All of the league is going to be staying at 250 Delaware this week. We need to let them know that it is unacceptable, and when they're in our city, they should know that they're making an active decision to support people who are kidnapping our neighbors and profiting from it. The lease is worth $2 million annually. So at the end of the lease, they will, Uland Development would be $20 million off of that. That's unacceptable, and we're stopping it. So go to evictice250delaware.com. You can donate there, you can find out more information, you can learn how to get involved. There's information in the back, and I have flyers about the arena action. We'd love to see each and every one of you out there. Thank you so much for your time.
feeling burned out. I see very few people with their hands down. Almost every single person in this room is probably feeling pretty burned out right now. And honestly, I feel like I was feeling burned out weeks ago, months ago, even a year ago. And so I want to be honest that it was actually very difficult for me to write this talk. Because earlier this week, I sat down at my computer and I thought about what I was going to say. And I started to prepare it and I put my hands on the keyboard and nothing happened. I looked at the screen and I thought about everything that I could say to you. I spend every day of my life thinking about and writing about how stressed out we all are, how burned out we all are, and how this political and societal moment is impacting our brain and our thinking and our mood and behavior. But still, I sat looking at my computer screen and I just couldn't think of anything to say. And it was then that I had what I would describe to my young children as an oh poop moment. Because I realized that I was so burned out that I could not write a talk about burnout. So I did what any depleted person does when they're feeling exhausted and burned out. I procrastinated. And so I've spent this last week completely logging off of social media. I put my phone on silent and I decided to start reading a book that I've been that I've been not reading, that I've been meaning to read for a few months. And miraculously, by the end of the week, my brain started working better, my mood lifted, and the world didn't have this, terrible gray cover of doom over it anymore. So the moral of this story is to just stop scrolling on your phone and to read a book. Just kidding, it's not actually the moral of the story. And actually what I hope that you will take away from this talk is that individual temporary fixes, like scrolling less on our phone and choosing our information consumption better, like reading a book instead of scrolling, these strategies can only take us so far. They are not the solution. They are little band-aids on top of what is essentially this gaping wound of awfulness that we're experiencing. So, one of the largest changes that would actually help us is obviously living in a society that didn't constantly push our bodies into alarm mode. That would be ideal, right? But it's very unlikely that we will live in that society anytime soon. And almost certainly, at least not within the next couple of years. So we have to figure out ways that we can sustain ourselves and to sustain our movements and our activism without getting so burnt out that we can't even write a talk about burnout. So in order to understand the ways that we can sustain ourselves, we need to first understand how our brains work. So I want to do a little bit of an interactive demonstration right now. I want you to all take your hand and hold it up like this. And then I want you to take your thumb and lay it over the top of your palm. And now I want you to take your fingers and fold them over your hand like this. This is your brain, or at least a model of a brain. And your thumb underneath of here represents what's called your limbic system. And this part of your brain is responsible for things like motivation and reward. But most importantly for this talk, it's also involved in your body's alarm system. So this is the region that triggers things like the fight or flight behavioral response when you're faced with a threat. And this upper part here is your cortex. So this is a part on the outer top part of your brain. And then the fingertips here are the prefrontal cortex. And this is a very important part of your brain. This is involved in what we call higher order cognitive functions. So things like self-control, planning, perspective taking, empathy, and importantly, emotional regulation. And when your hand is in a fist like this, this represents a regulated state in which the prefrontal regions of your brain are regulating and mediating the signals from your body's alarm system. And when you are all sitting here listening to me, you're in this regulated state. But if someone in this room were to stand up and scream a blood-curdling scream as loud as they possibly could, you would no longer be in this regulated state. Hopefully you would not just sit there and think this is normal. Instead, you would enter a state of dysregulation. And the neuropsychiatrist who created this hand model calls this flipping your lid. So you flip your fingers up, and this represents your prefrontal cortex no longer effectively regulating the alarm system underneath. Your alarm system is basically taking control of the reins and driving behavior. And this is adaptive because this is how our ancestors survived. So dysregulation is adaptive. You know, when our ancestors ran into a hungry tiger when they were walking around, they didn't just sit there and say, my, what beautiful orange and black stripes that animal has. Instead, their body entered a state of dysregulation, and it prompted them to fight or flee. But the important thing to know about your body's alarm system and dysregulation is that this system is designed with the idea in mind that eventually the alarm turns off. Eventually the threat stops. So when you were an early human, either you successfully fought the tiger, maybe, or you fled the tiger, or you were eaten. And you know, that second condition is perhaps not the most ideal way to turn off the alarm system, but it did eventually turn off. And this is true for other threats that early humans faced as well, things like food scarcity or a drought. These often didn't last that long because either you found food and water or you died. You know, either way, this alarm system turned off. But that is not what we are living with today. We are living in a world where many of the threats that we face are chronic, lifelong often, and abstract in a way that nothing that we do, no simple behavioral fight or flight response, can turn that chronic alarm off. And so the majority of us are living in a state, to some degree or another, of chronic dysregulation. And the thing about chronic dysregulation is that it doesn't just push our bodies into this lid-flipped, dysregulated state. It also changes the entire system itself. So the baseline changes, such that we become more emotionally reactive, we are more easily dysregulated, we have a harder time bringing our body back down to baseline once we encounter a threat. And so all of these changes make this limbic alarm system stronger and more reactive, and it's also reducing all the prefrontal control over it. So we have less capacity for things like perspective taking and empathy and self-control and emotional regulation. And so you might be able to see how living in a world where we are all chronically dysregulated, in a world where I think most of us believe that we should have empathy, is not a particularly great condition because we are eroding the very things that we need in order to be empathetic people in our society. And on top of that, once dysregulation lasts for long enough, we also get a number of other changes in the brain, including things like a loss of motivation, a depressed mood, and maybe a mild state of depression. And all of these things are sort of the things that we would usually associate with burnout. So this chronic state of dysregulation can also lead to burnout. And so this is often responsible for that urge that many of us have, at least I have lately, to just completely tune out of politics and maybe crawl into bed and pull the covers over our head and sleep for the next 2 years at least. But some of you may be thinking at this point, Yes, okay, I get it. This political moment is changing how our brains work, and that explains many of the things we're experiencing, like heightened emotional reactivity and burnout. But how does knowing this help us as activists? Which is a reasonable question. And the answer to that is that evolution did not just gift us with an alarm system to help us survive. It also gifted us with a number of tools to help us tolerate threat and to turn off the alarm system. And probably the most important of these tools is something called co-regulation. And what co-regulation refers to is the way that our nervous systems and our bodies settle or regulate around other people. Because humans didn't evolve to calm ourselves down in isolation. And we can see this clearly if we think about a baby. You know, a baby does not have the capacity to calm themselves down when they're distressed. Instead, they sort of borrow calm from a caregiver. The caregiver's steady voice, their slower breathing, and their heart rate can all help an infant calm down when they are distressed. And this is the first way any of us ever learned to calm down, was through another person. And this is true for the rest of our lives. We regulate best in the company of other people. But unfortunately, we spend a lot of our time today by ourselves. And we're being honest, we live in a society that is built against community in multiple ways. We live in our separate houses. We typically experience chronic abstract threats through a glowing screen on our phone, often at night by ourselves, where we are not co-regulating with other humans. We are essentially just wallowing in our own misery and dysregulation by ourselves. And I think this is why so many people right now, both activists and non-activists, are feeling so burned out. It's not just the deluge of crises and chaos that we're witnessing. It's also the result of living in a society that has lost the communal co-regulatory conditions that once helped humans come back from alarm. So, if burnout is partly a consequence of chronic threat, and also the consequence of not having enough co-regulation, then the solution is probably some combination of reducing threat and increasing the conditions for co-regulation. But reducing threat is incredibly hard. Our society is probably not going to become less threat saturated anytime soon, and at least not for the next couple of years. And asking people to simply tune out of the news is also not a great strategy, especially if you're an activist and you want people to be involved and engaged with politics and activism. So I think we really need to focus on that second half of the equation, which is co-regulation. More specifically, I think we need to be asking ourselves, how can we facilitate co-regulation to create a more sustainable movement? So I recently read a Substack piece titled, "Why is the Left No Fun?" This was written by Eric Blum, who is an assistant professor of labor studies at Rutgers University. In the piece, he described how the great working class movements of the last century grew as much through their community socials as they did through their politics. They grew through picnics, and choirs, and baseball leagues, and Saturday night dances. The organizing and the co-regulation weren't two separate things. They were the same thing. The potluck was the meeting. The singing was a crucial part of the sustainability of the movement. People came back year after year, not only because they believed in the cause, but because that's where their friends were. That's where the music was. That's where they felt like they belonged to something that was bigger than themselves and something that helped them regulate. In other words, those movements weren't just organizing people. they were regulated people. And that's a big part of what kept people from burning out and walking away from the movement. A depleted person that is dysregulated cannot make themselves show up for one more thing that drains them. But a depleted person will show up for something that gives them a little something back. For laughter, for a good meal, for music, for the feeling of being surrounded by people who nourish them rather than deplete them. And I think this matters enormously for one group of people in particular. One group of people that is particularly absent and noticeably absent from this room, and that is younger people. It's easy to assume that younger people just don't care, but I don't think that that's actually it. I think they just don't have the emotional bandwidth. I think they're so depleted, so isolated, and so dysregulated that the idea of piling effortful, joyless activism on top of all that just feels completely impossible. In his Substack piece, Eric Blanc quotes a 1913 article from the US Socialist Party that said, "Few young people will come to a dry business meeting. Very few more will attend a lecture or a similar affair. Other methods must first be used to interest them in the work of the movement. This must be reached, or they must be reached by interesting them in something in which they naturally delight." And I agree with this wholeheartedly. Now, Blanc's larger point is that this kind of joyful community is mostly missing from the left today. But he's careful to name a few exceptions, like Zohran Mamdani's campaign in New York, among others. I'd also add to that list our own recent protests, because they've been full of music and joy and dancing and children of all ages and smiling faces. But, like Blanc, I don't think that a handful of exceptions is anywhere near enough. One protest every few months is not enough to sustain people. We need so much more of it. And I think Mamdani, now that he's actually mayor, is showing us exactly what this can look like. He's bringing people together. He's emphasizing community. He's giving New Yorkers hope and joy and happiness alongside policies that actually help the majority of New Yorkers. But unfortunately for the rest of us, we don't have a Mayor Mamdani bringing us a gift of joy and community. So it's up to us. So what does a sustainable movement defined by co-regulation, community, and joy actually look like? Maybe it's an event that has a political speaker, but that also has a bounce house for the kids, a potluck dinner, and a live band that older kids and adults would also enjoy. Maybe it's a postcard writing campaign that happens around a big picnic table, around a blanket, with coffee and snacks and a coloring station set up right beside it so parents can bring their children and write a few postcards while the kids draw or run around. Whatever it is, imagine if every single action we organized assumed from the start that people would be tired, that they would be bringing their families, that they would need to be fed, and that they would need to laugh and hear some music and be nourished. Picture if the question we asked was not only, is this strategic, but is this something that a completely burned out, worn out, dysregulated person would genuinely want to come to, and that they would also want to bring a friend or a child or a neighbor to. Which brings me to what is probably the most radical thing I'm going to say today. So brace yourselves. I think we need to stop talking so much about Trump. I think we need to stop talking about the rising threat of fascism. People don't need us to tell them that if they don't vote, the United States is destined to slide into full-blown authoritarianism. That may be true, but while outrage and fear are very strong motivators, they're also very expensive fuels for the human body, and they only get us so far. Eventually, that outrage and fear stops being motivating and begins to paralyze us. A dysregulated and burned out brain is not motivated by more fear and more dysregulation. We need to pull people's brains out of dysregulation. We need to offer them hope and joy and fun and nourishing human connection that's not just built on grievances and shared outrage. These are much more sustainable motivators than fear and urgency. To be clear, I'm not saying that we should ignore the very real threats that our country is facing. I'm saying that we need to stop leading with those threats. And I think that Mamdani and his team in New York City have figured this out. If you pay close attention to him, he's not focusing on resisting Trump or talking about the right-wing agenda. He's showing people a new, hopeful, and joyful way forward. And I think that's what leaders on the left right now need to be doing, though they're mostly not. And I think it's something that we all should be doing too. And when we do all of this, several things happen at once. We make our movements more accessible to people who are depleted, which is most of us. We potentially draw in the young families and the young people who have been sitting it out because of sheer exhaustion or the impracticality of attending traditional meetings. And most importantly, we co-regulate and help prevent burnout. We sit at tables together, we sing together, and we allow our nervous systems to come back down out of alarm, all at the same time that we're doing the work of saving our democracy.
Thank you so much. And I can see that I have a long way to go to up the entertainment quotient. So those of you who are singers and dancers, please see me after the show. Thank you. We'll see you next month. We are the third Saturday of every month. We are not giving up. Thank you so much.